Rain hangs over Seattle like a secret no one wants to say aloud. The morning my mother was buried, Bleach clung to our banister harder than the lilies clung to the air. My name is Avery Quinn, and before the mourners even left, I was already counting steps 1 through 6, because 6 was where the story insisted on stopping. Everyone called it an accident. They said she slipped that stone, remembers nothing, but stone keeps scuffs and cleaners don't drown every trace. They only make your nose sting so you don't ask why your eyes do. I stood at the bottom of the staircase and let the quiet press against me, the house performing politeness, while something mean hummed beneath. In my room, the black dress she once hemmed for me waited on a hanger, obedient as grief. The seam along the inner lining felt wrong, a shy ridge under my fingers. I teased the thread, and a tiny pocket grinned open with a soft rip, offering a silver key scratched along its teeth. My mother stitched messages into grocery lists and Christmas stockings. This was no accident either. I closed my palm around the key until it warmed, until the thought of leaving it alone felt like betrayal. Downstairs, voices rose and cooled like tea abandoned on a saucer, Victor careful in every syllable, Ethan careless in the spaces between, Clarissa sweet as a bandage that pulls hair when you take it off. None of them looked up when I passed the doorway. The 6th step waited like a bruise you don't press because you already know it hurts. If the key opened what I thought it would, the house wouldn't be the only thing pretending. I told myself I would go gently. Then I started down the hall. I didn't wait for condolences to settle or casseroles to cool. Grief for me has never been passive. It sits in my chest like a fist and makes movement the only relief. The silver key stayed buried in my palm as I slipped down the back stairs, avoiding the echo of voices that were suddenly too polite for a house that had seen screaming only 3 nights before. No one raised their voice when the coroner ruled it an accident except me in my head. The basement door complained the same way it did when I was a kid sneaking cookies, but the hinges had been oiled recently. My mother never wasted oil. Victor must have ordered it. He liked things that made no noise, especially guilt. The old storage room still smelled faintly of cedar and dust, a reminder of the winters when Mom and I unpacked holiday ornaments, and she hummed the same tune every year, off-key and happy. The safe sat behind a stack of forgotten tax files and paint cans. Mom always hid important things in boring corners, she said. Danger never came dressed like itself. The key fit without hesitation, turning with a tired click that made my heart jump. Inside lay no jewels, no will, no dramatic confession to make this easier. Just a thin leather notebook, brown and soft from years of being handled. The sight of her handwriting on the first page, neat, steady, methodical, hit harder than any eulogy. Columns of transactions ran down each sheet, dates and amounts, names disguised with initials only. Someone raised on her kitchen table budgeting riddles would decipher. HBDF. Q-Vent. Various transfers marked urgent circled twice, and the red ink habit she used only when fear sat beside her. A few pages in a line stopped me. Call from H. Said not to push. Said Avery can't see. My breath caught and the basement suddenly felt colder than the stone she died on. I flipped further and found a faint rectangular shadow where paper had been torn out, the impression of a staple still biting the page. Something had been here. Something someone didn't want me to read. My pulse thumped in my throat hard enough to blur the ink. I remembered the bleach on the banister. I remembered Victor's hand on my shoulder after the police left, his voice gentle, his eyes too calm. A creak sounded upstairs, then footsteps crossing the hardwood. I closed the notebook and tucked it under my arm, locking the safe again, even though caution felt pointless now. Secrets lived in this house long before I found that key, but tonight mine would not stay still. I climbed the stairs quietly, the ledger pressed to my ribs, and paused at the 6th step. I didn't touch it. Not yet. I wasn't here to mourn anymore. I was here to see. By evening, the house had changed clothes. Mourning bows still clung to the gates, but inside crystal glimmered and candles flickered like grief came with an expiration date. Victor believed in order mourning at 9, dinner at 7, silence whenever truth tried to speak. Clarissa greeted me, first warm perfume and careful sympathy. "Avery, darling, you should eat," she whispered, her touch soft as if I might break. Ethan lounged 2 seats down, wine swirling. Glad you joined the living, he said, smirking. His cuff slipped, revealing a fresh scrape along his wrist, gone a heartbeat later. Victor sat at the head posture perfect. We're all hurting, he said smoothly. Your mother was important. Routine helps us survive. Routine. That was one word for cleaning blood before calling the funeral home. I traced my glass. I've been thinking of selling my shares in North Lake Interiors, I said lightly. I won't be in Seattle long. Ethan's head snapped up. You shouldn't rush decisions. Nora wouldn't want that. Clarissa softened. Victor didn't blink. Oh, I asked. You think someone might be interested in buying? Ethan sipped his wine. We take care of our own. If you want to drop dead weight, we'll handle it. My grip tightened on the napkin. Dead weight, my mother's legacy. Clarissa forced a smile. Let's not talk finance at dinner. Victor set down his fork. We'll discuss it later, he said. Tonight, we heal. I looked around the table and felt the lie settle like dust. Healing was never the plan here. Survival was. The next morning, Seattle woke in its usual gray mist, slicking the windows like fingerprints. I met Mateo 2 blocks from the paper. I didn't want the Hale name crossing any newsroom before I knew how big the fire was. He handed me coffee, studying me with the kind of concern only someone who's seen your worst moments can. You didn't sleep. I didn't. I showed him the corner of my mother's leather notebook. She kept records names hidden, but not enough. And someone tore out a page, I said. Like ink could erase memory. We walked the waterfront toward the records building, gulls shrieking like warnings. Mateo opened his laptop, charity filings, IRS forms, transaction logs. We mapped the network Harbor Dawn Foundation, Qvent LLC, and a chain of harmless-looking shells. The deeper we dug, the less harmless they seemed. Hale money flows here, he murmured. And here, consulting fees from a company with no employees. Lorraine's name is everywhere, I said. They hid power in crumbs. This isn't bad accounting, he said slowly. No. It's laundering. And my mother found it. The trail led to a Sodo storage unit tied to Qvent. The lock was cut, the air damp and stale. A filing cabinet stood empty except for dust. A collapsed box held stray receipts and a tarnished tape recorder. I pocketed it, feeling the weight of voices trapped inside. Outside, the city buzzed, indifferent. Secrets don't wash off easily. If my mother died for refusing silence, I knew one thing quiet would never save me either. The Hyatt ballroom glittered like it meant to blind guilt before it entered. Strings floated, champagne chimed, and every chandelier worked to make charity look holy. Harbor Dawn banners lined the walls, soft blues, smiling children no one here had met. I smoothed my black dress, scanning faces polished with wealth and righteousness. Victor thrived here, Tuck's immaculate smile saintly. Ethan hovered close, jaw tight. Clarissa hosted with perfect pearls. Lorraine sat near the stage cane, poised, the Hale dynasty on display. I felt like a matchbook in a room drenched in cologne. When the auctioneer announced a rare painting, I raised my paddle without hesitation. Curious eyes turned. I won and walked to the stage. I'd like to donate it back, I said, and say a few words for my mother. Polite applause. Victor's smile strained. My mother believed charity meant transparency, I began. So I looked at Harbor Dawn's filings. Silence thickened. Funds moved through Qvent LLC and back into Halberd's real estate arm, I said, clicking a remote. Screens flickered with flowcharts Mateo and I built. Trustee signatures under Lorraine Hale's name used to hide ownership. Gasps rippled. Lorraine's breath caught. Clarissa's hand flew to her pearls. Victor froze. Tonight's about truth, right? My voice didn't shake. Someone used charity to launder power. My mother tried to stop it. Lorraine Rose's voice cracking. I did it to protect my family. Her cane slipped. Chaos followed. Cameras lifted, whispers swelled, champagne soured. Victor's mask fractured. Ethan stared at me like he finally understood I wasn't going to break. For the first time since my mother fell, someone else trembled. The moment I stepped off stage, security threaded through the crowd like veins tightening. A staffer led me into a side room lined with velvet drapes and expensive silence meant to swallow scandal. My heels clicked steady against marble despite the adrenaline clawing my ribs. Victor arrived first, face carved from stone, then Ethan calm, stretched thin, and finally Clarissa closing the door with a softness that cut. For a beat, no one spoke. The muffled hum of the gala pressed through the door, Polite applause, unaware the floor was shifting. Victor studied me like he couldn't decide if I was his daughter or his problem. "Avery," he said low, and measured the tone used before something smothered. "You should have come to me." "Mom tried that," I said. My bag held the ledger like a second heartbeat. "Look where it got her." Ethan flinched. Clarissa reached for him. He shook her off, fixing his cuff like it could hide guilt. Victor folded his hands behind his back. "You don't understand the consequences." "I understand enough," I said. "Every file, every page recorded and backed up. If anything happens to me, it all goes public." My voice was calm, but it landed hard. Clarissa's breath hitched. Ethan's anger surfaced brittle. "You think you're some kind of hero? You don't know what this family carries." She pushed too far. She, what I asked, fell, or did someone grab her arm when she tried to leave? Silence solidified. Ethan's jaw clenched. "I tried to stop her from running to the neighbors," he muttered. She panicked, lost her footing. Clarissa gasped, mascara streaking. Victor didn't deny, didn't move. A knock cut through. A Seattle PD badge slid into view. "Ms. Quinn, we'll need your statement and to speak with the Hales." No one moved. Clarissa trembled. Ethan swallowed hard. Victor exhaled, calm or calculating. I lifted my chin. "I'm ready." For the first time, they weren't. The police station didn't smell like righteousness, just damp jackets, old coffee, and the hum of people who'd heard every excuse. I sat across from the detective, the ledger open between us like a wound finally breathing. My voice stayed steady as I walked her through each page and red ink circle my mother left like breadcrumbs. She listened, pen-scratching eyes, lifting only when I mentioned the staircase and the bleach. "Do you feel safe returning home tonight?" she asked. "My mother didn't," I said. Rain streaked the window like time refusing to clear anything quickly. Victor and Ethan were questioned separately. Clarissa waited in the hallway, wrists pressed together as if already praying. Lorraine's collapse at the gala earned her a hospital bed, not handcuffs. Power decays before it breaks. Hours later, I left with paperwork and a victim witness number, the weight of procedure settling on my shoulders. Justice didn't feel cinematic. It felt like forms, signatures, and gears grinding slower than grief. At the Hale gates, I paused. One lamp burned in the dark house like it was waiting. Inside, I climbed to the 6th step, pressing my fingers to the cool stone. I could almost hear her hum the tune she never got right, but never stopped singing. "You saw Mom. You made sure I would." No tears left, only clean exhaustion, the kind that comes after carrying something too heavy for too long. I gathered what mattered, a photo, a sweater, her books. At the door, I looked back once. The silence wasn't threatening anymore. It was just silence. Outside, Mateo waited in his car headlights, soft in the mist. He didn't ask questions. I rested the ledger on my lap like a monument of paper and courage. As we pulled away, the mansion shrank behind us, not a kingdom lost, but a secret too small to contain me. Justice didn't roar, it whispered. And I listened. Seattle softened with spring before the headlines did. Lawsuits piled up. Indictments followed slow, steady, inevitable as tidewater. Ethan took a plea manslaughter obstruction, a future built on courtrooms instead of inheritance. Victor resigned from Halberd with a polished statement, but markets read the cracks beneath. Clarissa vanished from society's pages. Lorraine funded a scholarship in my mother's name. No press, just a note to my attorney. She deserved better. So do you. I never moved back into that house or burned it down. Some revenge isn't destruction. It's refusal. I rented a small apartment by the water, sunlight crawling across the floor each morning. Peace is louder than people think. One afternoon, I set the brown ledger on my kitchen table. Its pages no longer cried, they guided. I brewed tea like Mom did, too strong honey instead of sugar, and let the steam curl around my fingers. When I closed the book, I didn't hide it. I placed it on a shelf where sunlight could touch the spine. That evening, I walked to the park, shoes damp from melted rain, and sat near a group of teenagers laughing like the world hadn't warned them yet. I didn't envy them. I admired them. Survival done right makes you gentler. On my way home, I thought of the 6th step not as a scar, but a threshold. My mother's last breath didn't end her story. It began mine. Justice didn't return what I lost. It returned who I am.